What is up? What it do? What it be, people? You are now listening to Start Talks, a podcast where everything from what an engineering student does to what an engineer does in the industry is answered. Today, we have the honor of having another guest with us. Shashwat, would you like to do the honors?
Yeah. So she's an electrical engineer at NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab. She transferred from a community college into UCLA where she obtained her degree in electrical engineering with two full ride scholarships. She obtained an internship at JPL during her junior year and has been there ever since. She's currently working on the Europa Clipper mission, which will send an orbiter to Jupiter in order to explore the icy moon Europa. It is my pleasure to introduce Kat Echazarreta. Welcome to Star Talks, and how's your day been?
Thank you guys for having me. It's been very busy. I did a lot of testing in the lab today, so I was definitely ready to come home.
So, Kat, to begin off, like getting more in depth into the podcast, as Shashwat already mentioned, obviously you're in the electrical field for engineering, right? So, with
Yes.
many specializations available, right? What were the factors, or like what made you specifically like narrow down onto electrical engineering? Would you mind sharing that with us?
So I actually was, when I was in high school, I was between studying physics or electrical engineering. For me, electricity has always been such an amazing thing. And it's also always been that one thing that I couldn't figure out. I didn't have the way to know it all, right? So when I got to physics and I started studying electricity and magnetism, I just fell in love. And so that's sort of when I decided that I absolutely wanted to go into electricity in some way. I didn't know at the time if I wanted it to be a little bit more applied or a little bit more theoretical.
Mhm.
So eventually I did decide that I liked the applied side a little bit better, which is why I went with electrical engineering. But my love for electricity has been there pretty much all my life. I've been obsessed with it always.
I 100% agree with you. For me, I would say it's not the exact same thing for engineering. What got me into engineering, I would say was robotics. Because I'll be honest with you, up until grade 12, second semester, I had no idea where I wanted to be in life.
Yeah.
And that was my biggest, I was really scared. I really didn't know where my life was gonna go. I was really scared. So out of nowhere, I decided to join the robotics club in my school. And that kind of, that kind of was that point that I was like, all right, this is what I want to do with my life. And that's what kind of got me into engineering. What about you guys?
So I've kind of mentioned this before in the podcast. I would like, to be honest, Kat, like up until the last point when we were like getting to uni, I was in the medical field. I had accepted all my med based admissions and stuff. But like last minute, I made a switch up to computer engineering, right? As Mebin also mentioned, in high school, I have been part of my robotics team. We had like a coding team that we set up to teach people who don't know how to code in Python, language and stuff. So like, uh, engineering, the concept of engineering has always existed for me, and I had some kind of an interest, but like I was never willing to like search more into it, right? And I kind of threw myself into it when it came to uni time. But so far, it's mid almost finishing up the first semester of second year, it has been like pretty good. So yeah, I'm happy that I made this choice for sure.
Yeah, for me, I think I was in the same boat kind of thing. But for me, I knew it was either like electrical engineering or computer engineering. I decided to pick computer engineering because I kind of fell in love in like the coding side as well. So I wanted to do both in a sense, right? So that's why I ended up picking computer engineering, right? So that's my story. Like I was also part of the robotics team with Mebin, tech design club, computer science club. So like those are like those application sides kind of uh
Talking about that,
made me
Shashwat,
go to like the
Kat,
computer engineering side. But
what
yeah,
made you
electrical engineering
choose
was also
specifically
an option for
electrical
me too.
engineering? And would you say there's like a very big difference from, let's say, electrical to computer or like the other fields of engineering?
My degree was when I started at UCLA, it was electrical engineering. UCLA separated their majors in that way. However, by the time that I graduated, they had merged into electrical and computer engineering. So when I graduated with also the computer aspect of it as part of my degree. So I mean, from the classes that I took with other students that were doing computer engineering, really a lot of the basics are very, very similar, right? We still both take the circuits classes, we still both take the programming classes. I think really it just depends on what it is that you want to do with it. If you want to specifically work with computers, or for example, like me, I don't really have a specific preference to designing or testing computers. I just like hardware in general. So that's why I decided to go a little bit more general when I first started.
Okay. So like continuing into like the American education system, right? Because I'm pretty sure, Kat, you know that we're in, like me, Mev, and Shasha are located in Canada.
Yeah.
So even though there is a lot of similarities, like the processes to get into uni or like college, I'm guessing also is pretty predominant in America, right? Is different. I believe you guys have to do the ACTs, the SATs, and so on. Would you mind explaining a bit on that? Because like we do have a pretty good American audience who are in that age group of like getting into uni, you know?
Yeah. It's definitely a process. So actually, recently, I believe the UC system, which is the university system that I attended, is no longer taking standardized test scores, as far as I heard. But when I first applied, right out of high school, it was you take the SAT or the ACT. On top of that, you submit your application with your essays and you have all of your extracurriculars. They really kind of nail it down on you that you have to be a well rounded student. So everyone in high school is kind of hustling to try to join sports teams and join different clubs and join robotics and join debate and join everything. So it kind of is really just a very stressful experience for a lot of high school students. I had a little bit of I had both experiences because I applied right out of high school, but then I actually decided to attend community college, which is much cheaper. I don't know if do you guys have community colleges in Canada?
We do. But like,
Okay.
so how does the transition work though? Like, was it like a bridging program into your UCLA degree then, like the community college?
So the community colleges, they have agreements with the universities within the same state where the classes that they offer have already been pre-approved by the university as transferable.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Yeah.
so
Yeah, we don't
so
get
they
that
give you a
option
list
here.
and you take from there.
Oh,
Oh,
okay. Yeah, like the thing is, I've had friends who went into like community colleges. They did a 2-3 year program, right? And
mhm.
some of the courses were considered by like the university, right? And like not all the courses though. They're not like pre-approved like how you mentioned in America it is, right? Here it's more of a few courses are approved, right? They count for certain credits, but then you got to go through the full process of studying like from the base most of the time.
Oh wow. Yeah, that sounds pretty stressful.
Quick question. You mentioned about your extracurriculars. Well, nowadays in in high schools, there's so many extracurriculars that people get really overwhelmed, and there was a lot of feedback that we got from students as, hey, what extracurricular should I take if I wanted to go into so and so field of engineering and so on and so forth? Is there some that you specifically took that you found beneficial?
Really good question. And the reason why I love answering this question is because a lot of students seem to think that there is this specific formula which is going to get them from one place to the next, right? Whether that be into a certain university, into a certain major, or into a certain job. But I have found, just from my experience and from speaking to multiple admissions counselors and representatives from all over the place, scholarships or universities, or even applying to jobs. I recently hired an intern. So I have a lot of experience in when it comes to what is it that people are looking for in you, right? For a particular role. And
Right.
I would say that the biggest mistake that you can make is to sign up for things just because you're trying to get into something else. Um, the best thing that you can do is to join things that you are truly passionate about, that you are really honestly interested in. And when you do that, that's how you will be able to actually dedicate yourself to it. I'm the kind of person where if I am taking a class and I do not like it and I am not interested, it's really hard for me to apply myself to it. And I think that that also goes to the different extracurriculars. Um, Simply signing up for things just because you want to write it down on a piece of paper is really not doing anything for you. So selecting the things that you truly are passionate about, that's what's really going to make you stand out. And when it comes to engineering, one of those things that you can do even from a young age is already start to develop those skills, right? Like you guys said, you were all interested in engineering and you joined the robotics club. So those things, when somebody sees that, they're going to say, oh yeah, this person told me they have a passion for engineering. And not only they're telling me, they're showing me, because they have been able to build something out of that passion. That's absolutely what I recommend.
Right, 100%. I 100% agree with you because there's a lot of people who believe that because the right word that you used and I agree with is the formula or like the right steps that you could do to get into the exact spot that you want to, which I looked for my entire
Mm-hmm.
life and I still haven't found,
Yeah.
to be honest. So that is 100% true, and I would definitely support that. Philip?
Yeah, so I had a question. Like I realized how I noticed how you mentioned internship, right? One of the recent things I've been seeing all over my LinkedIn is for like the job opportunities is like the internships available at the JPL lab, right? And I've been like particularly looking into internships abroad. And our internship year for all three of us are coming up this coming summer. Like that's when we can like technically start our internships, right? So do you have any recommendations on like how your internship, like can you explain how your internship process worked, right? Like the interview, leaving the good impression on the employer, and like getting that call, because I believe after your internship you were able to continue working there, correct? Because like you are currently working there.
Yeah, I can absolutely talk about that. I think it's very important. So JPL is a NASA contractor. So JPL is technically owned by Caltech, the university, but we have a contract with NASA, which is why and how we're able to do all of these amazing NASA missions. But because we are still under a NASA contract, a lot of the jobs and positions require US citizenship. However, since we are still not technically officially NASA, JPL is able to hire foreign nationals. And they also have a specific internship program where you're able to apply if you're not a US citizen at all. So it is called the JPL Visiting Researcher Program, in case you guys are interested in looking into that.
Mm-hmm.
But the process, I think it, it's really interesting because it's not all just your skills, your experience that gets you there, because so many people apply to places like JPL and the space industry in general that it also takes a little bit of luck and a lot of hard work on your part for getting your resume seen. So when you apply online, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other people that also applied. So,
So
for
you gotta
example,
somehow stand yourself out, right? Make yourself
yes,
stand out.
yes,
Okay.
absolutely. And make sure that you get yourself seen. So attending virtual conferences or attending conferences in person if you're able to, getting your resume in front of a real person. That is the best way to
Mm-hmm.
making sure that your resume gets seen.
Okay, I see. I think Shashwat is about to take over now.
Yeah, so we had a question from our last podcast. So on our last podcast, we had Suha, right? She's also studying with us. right? She talks about her struggles that she faces as a woman in engineering, right? So she is currently studying. So we would like to ask some questions like, how was it when you studied, and how is it now when you're actually in the field? So maybe you want
Mm-hmm.
to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when I first started, it was a little bit difficult. Um, well, that's putting it mildly. It was pretty difficult. And I think a big reason why is because women in general are not automatically seen as competent or capable. So when a new woman is on the team or you see a new woman in your classes, you don't automatically think, just based on, biases that people have.
Mhm,
A lot of people don't automatically think that this person is extremely capable, extremely smart. So I faced that a lot, where I would start a new program or start a new class, and essentially nobody wanted to be my lab partner. Nobody wanted to let me join study groups. So it was pretty hard for me to get assimilated into my degree, especially because at the beginning nobody really knew anything about me. It kind of I got used to it eventually, where I would have to sort of be vocal or be a little obvious about my test scores or homework scores. So some of the guys around me would hear that I was actually doing well. And that's when I would start hearing, you know, invites for study groups or invites for homework sessions. So it's a really interesting thing that a lot of us women have to go through, and that's something that I also wanted to ask you guys, um,
mhm,
because this is something that I, as a woman, I know it very well, and a lot of my classmates who are women, they know it perfectly well. However, I'm not sure if any of the guys actually notice. So, is this something that you noticed with your female classmates? Do you notice that they get treated differently? Or do you find yourself maybe looking at a woman and having those doubts about whether she's smart or how she got there?
Considering again going back to our last episode, since I've actually personally attended classes with Suha and we've been friends, and that's how I got to know her. Um, in the last episode, she mentioned how in one of our classes, one of our engineering classes itself, it was around, I would say, 50 people in a lecture hall. It was just a small class. It was very interactive. And we, like, the professor himself brought up this question on why there's this stigma around women in engineering.
Mm-hmm.
And she mentioned how a student in the class itself raised his hand and blatantly just said that women are incompetent. And obviously, it was very awkward. It was a lot of tension, and the people obviously discussed that topic. But and Suha considered that, so that was her main point. She mentioned exactly what you said about how she had to be bold enough to stand her ground, but not be bold enough to look aggressive to other people. Where
Mm-hmm.
she had to prove her point, and where she had to fight her fight to prove that she is worthy enough, or she is capable of doing everything and much more than what anyone else in engineering is capable of as well. So considering that, seeing both perspectives, and to be honest, that's a reason that we were able to get you on our podcast, because you are someone who has been through these struggles and is on the end of the spectrum, who's been through the struggle and who's now in the working field, right? And again, these advices and these tips will kind of help people who are facing these struggles in engineering. My point is that I don't think that's the point I consider, in the sense that I 100% agree to the points you said. I don't believe that women should be considered in any way incompetent. Um, what about you guys? What do you guys think?
like in my opinion, like I have seen this through high school. Like we used to have like these specialized computer engineering slash electrical engineering class. And then I think me and Mebin went to the same school. I think he can also talk about this a little bit after. that there was only like 2 girls and like 20 boys in that class,
Oh yeah, yeah, you're right.
right? So it was I felt like in a sense really bad for them because whenever there's a group project, it was like the teacher said like, oh, have 4 people in your group, but usually like the girls were they worked together, so it was only 2 of them, so they had to work together and do more work, right? So it's just seeing that and seeing. I thought that won't be the case in university, but in case of university, I've also seen that throughout, and I think it's not really a good thing because at the end of the day, like they should have a fair chance. Like if it's 2 people in the group, like you have to do more work. It's not fair for them, right?
To
So
to
Mm-hmm.
be honest with you, I feel like it's only like spiraling to an extent, in the sense that I was able to ask a lot of our students or our followers that follow us, and rely on us for information about engineering. And I've personally messaged them and asked, hey, are you interested in engineering? And they'd be like, not anymore, or not looking forward to that. And then I would be like, why? Being honest, they would say, because there's too many guys in the field, or I feel overwhelmed being in a field with that many guys. And as Shashwat mentioned, our class was kind of like that. I've had friends who wanted to be part of robotics, or wanted to, who was really interested in being part of tech clubs. It's just the environment was just really male dominant, and they were kind of overwhelmed by that.
Yeah.
I would also agree to an extent on that. Like, I was in the IB program, so the International Baccalaureate program, right? Our classes were most of the time even, but in most cases, the girls tend to outshine the guys, right? They were part of everything. They had the highest marks in the class, right? But like one thing I noticed is, like, as Mevin was mentioning about the robotics club, they were part of every club except for the robotics or the coding club, right? Those are things, it was just all guys, like 30, 40 guys in a room, no girls, right? And then coming into uni, as Shashwat also mentioned, it was a sparse number of girls in a class of 200 people, right? 200, 300 people. Like, majority would be guys, and then there would be like 4 or 5, or like maybe maximum like 10, 15 girls, right? Scattered around. So like seeing that, right? And then coming to learn more about like women in STEM, the adversities and like the struggles they have to go through to prove themselves, right? Worthy of this, right? Something the guys don't have to like necessarily do. It's something like that kind of hit me, because I was like, why did they have to take that extra step? Why did they have to put the extra effort, right? To do something that we can freely do, like we as guys can freely do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think another thing that is really prevalent for women in STEM is that, men can be average scientists, average engineers, they'll get along just fine. A woman cannot be an average engineer.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So it's a lot of pressure. It's definitely it's I have gotten a lot of the messages from women that you guys mentioned, where it'll be girls high school age saying, I really, really want to do engineering, but I don't know if I can handle it. And they're not talking about the coursework. They're not talking about the hard work that comes into studying engineering. They're talking about the aggression they're going to face, the sexism they're going to face, the lack of support that they're going to face. Um, and so when those are the things that you also have to think about on top of how hard it's going to be to pass your classes and, to just get through that engineering degree in general, it's just so it really is for a woman a very tough decision, and it is one that we are fully aware of going into it. So, I'm a very strong person. I'm a very confident person. I was not always like this. And a big reason why is because I have to be. I can't be shy. I can't be quiet. I can't be, just sitting in the back, letting things happen. I have to make my voice heard. I have to make my opinions heard, because that's just the way that it is for a woman in engineering. And another point that you had mentioned was, how does my experience in college compare to my experience now in the workplace? And it's a little bit different. I have heard horror stories from so many different companies and from other female engineers who have told me about the things that they've had to go through, ranging from not being trusted with projects to sexual harassment from coworkers. But I am extremely lucky, and it's terrible that I have to say it as that, right? Like, oh, I'm lucky that I have a good job and a good workplace that isn't harassing me. But that's the way that it is for a lot of us. And so part of the interview process when it comes to women interviewing for these positions is also finding out, what is the work culture in this place? Am I going to be safe here? Are they going to take care of me here? Are they going to respect me here? Just because of who I am. So yeah, I think that my current position, I don't really have any problems when it comes to that. I've been able to establish myself pretty well. I've been able to gain challenging projects, and I do feel like I am trusted with difficult projects and with a lot of responsibility. I don't personally feel like me being a woman has had any effect on the way that I am currently viewed, but I do think that it did at the beginning. I still had to go through that process of, having to prove myself. And another very interesting point, which I learned when I started interning, was women in general are not taught throughout their lives how to use tools, right? That's not something that your dad teaches you when you're a little kid, how to use a screwdriver, how to use a power drill, how to use all of these things. So it was really embarrassing for me when I first started, and I was told, oh, go make a hole in this sheet of metal. And I didn't know how, because I've never used a power tool before in my life. So that's also some of the things that we have to go through.
I 100% agree with you, and everything that you said will 100% help like the people or the students that have asked us for tips, because that was initially one of my questions. That is there any tips that you would like to say to the engineering students that are in the engineering, who are studying engineering, to face these adversities? I would 100% say everything that you've said are basically going to help them overcome to an extent or fight for what they need to fight for. So I guess from there I could take it over to our next point, which is considering how you are working at JPL with the Europa Clipper mission and all of that, and you still balance a social media presence, such as you have an Instagram account which is pretty active, a TikTok account, and a YouTube channel where you post. So considering all these side projects, is there any side projects that you would like to mention on the podcast?
Yeah. So the biggest reason why I decided to start all of my different social media accounts was I understood and I realized when I started working that, looking around, there's no other women on the hardware team that I'm on. I'm the only one. And then aside from that, on my overall team with Europa for the ground support equipment, which is where I work, there's only one other woman. So I kind of just started to realize that if I just was an engineer and developed my career and worked on myself, that wasn't enough for me, because I needed to put in the work to help let other women know, women who have those doubts about, can I do this? Is it possible to get through this? Is there a place for me? And the answer is yes. So that's really the biggest reason why I decided to start my Instagram account and now my YouTube channel, because I want women and students in general, but particularly women who are doubtful about whether this is something that is for them.
Right.
That's the biggest thing that I wanted to do. I've always wanted to be an engineer or a scientist in some way, and I never wanted to be a public figure by any means. I do not like the spotlight at all. But I realized I didn't sign up to be a role model when I decided to be an engineer, but that's what I am. And so yeah, I just wanted to share the story about why I felt it was so important for me to do this.
Well, you're doing a great job at it, Kat.
Thanks.
I have a follow-up question. It's in like as Mevin mentioned, you have a lot of social media presence. Obviously, you're working full time as well, right?
Mhm.
How do you manage all this together? Because like personally, I struggle to maintain 7 courses and also maintain some kind of like some kind of a social life and normal life, I would say, right?
Yeah,
Like
it's a big
what is the
one.
trick behind this? How do you do this
Teaches
all?
your ways.
Oh my goodness. So I do a lot of planning. For example, if I have a lighter week at work, the work has to get done and I do my hours no matter what. But for example, this week I'm in the lab, I'm testing, I get my couple breaks during the day, but I come home and I'm exhausted. The last thing I want to do is get on Instagram and make videos and make posts, right? So
Mhm.
what I do is when I know I'm going to have these difficult weeks and I have some other lighter weeks when I'm just doing desk work or computer work, that's when I really load up on all of the content, film all my videos, because those are the weeks when I'm the least tired. So I've sort of got the hang of it now, where if I'm just walking around, somewhere and I see something cool, engineering related, I'm like, all right, take a picture, save it for whenever you're too exhausted to do anything, and then post it then. So yeah, it's a lot of self-preservation that I have going on.
Speaking, touching up again on the self-preservation part,
Yeah.
another huge question we have is time management. I guess again what Philip mentioned about the heavy course load, and especially us, since we're again trying to run this podcast, Star Talks, and the different projects that we're doing with the organization. Is there any time management tips that you would like to give us, and also an engineering student in general?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is lately what I have been doing, and it's been working out great because I used to burn out all the time, is shift my mentality of time management to what I call energy management.
Whoa.
So you wake up in the morning. How are you feeling? Are you tired? Are you thinking maybe you're going to be feeling lazy that day, or are you feeling productive? Because we always know when we wake up, we know I really don't want to do this today, or oh, I am ready to do this today. And so what I do is I manage my tasks based on how I am feeling. If I am not feeling too great today, then I'm not going to be doing that thing that is going to require a lot of energy out of me and a lot of focus and a lot of thinking. Why? Because I'm going to have to redo it later. Right? I know you guys probably go through that too, where you're not really into it, but you're sort of doing it anyway, and you're kind of just half doing it. And then you say, okay, I'll just go back to it later, and make sure everything's okay when I'm feeling better.
Right.
I
Yeah.
have stopped doing that. What I now do is, okay, I'm not feeling great, don't really want to do anything. So what can I do to fill up this time that is still going to get some tasks done? So I put in whatever orders I need to for work. I organize whatever documents I need to organize, things that don't require much out of me. And then when I am feeling better, that's when I say, okay, today I am feeling awesome. Today I'm going to be focused. I am going to be getting this calculation done or this bigger project done. And I have been able to avoid burnout for a good couple months now doing that. It's been working great.
That's I guess that's a very big paradigm shift. I've never thought of it as like energy management over time management. I feel like that would definitely be beneficial considering how burned out I feel most of the time.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that too, because like time management, our goal is to get tasks done, right? We really don't look at ourselves and like our well-being and like if we are in the right mindset to get tasks done. Because like as you mentioned, Kat, there's been times when I'm looking over notes or like watching lecture videos now that everything's online, right?
Mhm.
And half of the things are just going over my head. I know it's going over my head and I know I need to focus better, but I just can't put that energy in. And then I end up rewatching it or having to go through it a couple of times more, right? Wasting more time, obviously.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna try and implement that energy management shift. Like I'm gonna try and shift over to the energy management in my life. at least for this coming couple weeks, and see how that works out for me.
Let me know how it goes.
Will do.
Philip also mentioned about the online semester. Kat, I believe your work is also, except for the hardware testing part, is mostly online now.
Yeah.
Is there any tips you would like to give for students or anyone else who's going through this dramatic shift? Because I personally hate having everything online. I hate sitting behind my computer for so long and just going through these classes and notes over and over and over again. It's hurting my head. Is there any
Mm-hmm.
tips that you would give out to students or anyone else that's going through these online work sessions?
Yeah, I mean, I had to learn kind of right alongside you guys because I was used to when I was going to school, I lived right next to my school. I would go to my classes. When I had my internship or when I started working full time, I would go into lab. So it really was pretty difficult for me at first, but I think I finally got the hang of it. And part of it has to do with the energy management that I mentioned. So I made that shift and it has helped a lot. But I think that another thing that has been helping me a lot as well is creating designated workspaces. So I realized during the start of this that the desk that I have in my office, which was also the desk that I use for other activities, just like, going on the internet or doing whatever hobbies that I was doing at the time, I found myself not wanting to be at that desk at all any longer once my workday was over. Like, I didn't even want to look at it in the weekend. So I started setting up different workspaces. So even though I'm technically going from one desk to another, it's actually been helping so much. So that's the biggest reason why I started my workbench, which I always post about because I love it so much. But I needed to have that change. I needed to have a different scenario, just a change of scenery. I needed it for my sanity. So, you don't have to buy a whole brand new desk or anything like that, but trying to implement little changes of scenery within your own workspace um, has really, really helped me a lot, especially because we no longer have that change of, oh, I'm in school, now I'm at home. It's school is at home and work is at home. So you need to have those different little places where you do your specific things. That way, when you're done, you leave it and you can go to another part, and that's where you do this other thing,
Mhm.
and you don't feel just sick of that desk that you're already been at.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Only because for me right now, it's just work and play kind of happens in the same place. Like I
Mm,
sit and watch YouTube in the same place as the same place that I do my calculus work or like my circuits work or anything as such. And it's really throws off the mojo of it because in classes, there's a place that you learn, there's a place that you eat, there's a place that you chill with your friends, and there's another place for other stuff that you need to do. So I 100% agree with you. Like finding different environments or like having that switch of scenery helps you significantly more to cope with the situation. And I've been trying to do that as well. Thanks, Kat.
hmm
With that, I guess we can segue into our next segment, our traditional tech talks. Shashwat?
So tech trends is kind of like a staple here now. We've been doing this last two podcasts. So the first tech trend that I'd like to mention is Apple recently introduced their new iPhone. So they also stated that it has 5G, right? I just wanted to ask you, would you get the new iPhone just because it has the 5G aspect to it? Like is that something you were looking forward to when you're in the market for a new phone or something?
I think before that you need to answer: are you an Apple fan or a Samsung
Oh
fan?
yeah.
Oh, the big question.
The big
We have
question, the
come
big
to the
question.
big question, people.
100% Apple,
Oh
but
my
Let's go.
god.
when it comes,
Oh my
yeah, that's
god.
when it comes to phones, because I am not behind the new MacBooks at all.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'll
okay,
take that
yeah.
as a win. I will take that as a win in my book.
But to answer your question, I would say I would not get it just because of that,
Mhm.
but I think that it has some really cool implications for, so I can see some people who would,
Mhm.
particularly for example, I have friends who do a lot of hiking or who maybe work in buildings where they just never get any service. So I can see it as a selling point for a lot of those scenarios, especially the hiking one, because I remember when I went to Yosemite, it was kind of scary because there is just absolutely no coverage. So I didn't even have the chance to tell my mom that I was gonna not be replying back for the whole weekend.
Oh
So
God.
she got pretty
Oh
scared.
God.
She got really scared. So yeah, I really like the idea of, better coverage in some of these places where it's just not there at the moment.
Yeah, because like 5G in Canada hasn't progressed as much as the US, I would guess. So for us, that was not the selling point. Like I just wanted to ask you that question because I feel like in US it's been more progress. So yeah, so with that we can
Mm,
move on. With that we can move on to the second topic. So in past, Amazon recently I guess announced like they're having this drone delivery project. And also like I was looking more into like drones and how they're going to be implemented into real life. I was looking at NASA has also done something like this where they try to have like a traffic management system. So my question to you is like, how are drones going to change the world? Do you think we would see more drones around, not just for like videography or something, just for, like for other purposes?
I know that has been in the talks for a very long time,
Yeah.
and I actually do think that there is a market for it, especially because so right now it's a little different. It's not particularly a drone, but at UC Berkeley, there's a little robot that does the food delivery around campus.
Oh.
So I can kind of see something similar where the deliveries, food or shipping are done by drones. But I also think it's really interesting because I know that drones get stuck in trees and get stuck in all
Yeah.
sorts of places, or people, are trying to bring them down. So I am interested in how they're going to be managing that. But I am also really interested to see how this takes shape. And I have a big Amazon warehouse close to me since I'm in LA. So
Oh,
I can
okay.
definitely see this being kind of like one of the first places. So I'll let you guys know.
Let us know when you see one.
Yeah,
So, Kat, this is another. I guess I can't say this is a trend. This is just a personal question. Also, being a fellow space fan, once I heard that you were working on the Europa Clipper mission, I was kind of freaking out.
yeah.
But considering when I read that, I also read that they found evidence of life on Venus. Did you hear about that?
hmm hmm
Considering that, do you think that will affect your Clipper mission, or is that what is your take on the evidence of life on Venus?
Yeah. So, well, it's not a direct evidence of life, but it's a possible explanation. Um, and it's really interesting because currently, or before that, those news, Europa was the number one possibility for the search for life in the solar system.
Mhm.
So that search is still a very important search, and I don't, the mission is already well underway, so the mission is totally safe when it comes to the the contracts for funding that are going on and all of that. The one that I am very interested in hearing about its future is Europa Lander, because we had the Europa Clipper, which is an orbiter planned, and then the mission that would come next, which has already been proposed, is Europa Lander, which would send a lander to Europa. So that's the one where I am very curious to see whether that ends up going through or we end up putting a pin on it, to pursue Venus a little bit more. Venus is a very difficult place. It's a very, very, very difficult environment. So there's actually been a few NASA competitions. Even before this news came out, there's been a few NASA competitions for concept designs and proposals for sending missions to Venus. So
Oh, actually.
this is something that's already been in the works, but the environment is just so treacherous. It's really difficult for electronics in general. So I am also very interested to see and would love to be part of a future mission because it sounds very complicated and I am on board.
Oh my God. Imagine going to space. That would be so cool. Oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that concludes all the things that we have to cover for the podcast. Kat, any last words that you would like to get in?
Yeah, so I would just like to say that one of the biggest reasons why I love doing this is because I really love to show people that my job and my role doesn't define me in the way that I'm a normal person, you know? I am an absolutely normal person. I am not a superhuman. I am not a super genius. I am not one of those people where you put a book in front of me and I can read it and know everything. That's not me. So the fact that I'm working on all of these amazing missions and amazing projects, it it's just one of those things where I want and need people to know, especially students, especially people considering jobs in this industry, that there's absolutely room for you. You do not have to be a super genius. That's absolutely not what we are looking for. Passion, dedication, that is what will get you to your dreams. So definitely don't give up. Do not stop trying. Do not stop applying. There is room for you here.
All right, guys, if you'd like to listen to more of our stuff, check us out at Stark Enterprises on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcast. We will be putting links in our descriptions to where you can find Kat, such as her Instagram, her YouTube channel, and everything that you need to find about her. If you have any questions that you are dying to ask or have a guest idea that you want to see featured on the podcast, shoot us a DM at underscore Stark Enterprises. Want to get to know us better and our projects? Check out our website on our Instagram bio. With that, I am Mebin Matthew. With me was Shashwat Chauhan and Philip Thomas when we hosted Kat Echazarreta. And we have been Stark Talks.